A young widow's bare feet on dusty road at dawn. Her hands grip a worn travel sack, knuckles white, trembling. Behind her, the silhouette of Moab's mountains. Ahead, the unknown horizon of Judah. Her breath catches as she glances back one last time. What makes a woman abandon everything, her gods, her people, her only chance at a future, to follow an old, bitter widow into enemy territory? What secret did Ruth see in Naomi that no one else could see? And how did a foreigner's seemingly foolish choice become the hinge of salvation history itself? In the next 80 minutes, you'll discover the hidden decision that transformed loss into legacy, and why Ruth's secret is the key to understanding your own impossible choices. You'll witness the moment when covenant became more real than survival, when faithfulness outweighed fear, and when a Moabite woman's gamble on an invisible God rewrote the bloodline of the Messiah. If this story already stirs something in you, subscribe and turn on the bell, because what's coming will change how you see faithfulness forever. Bethlehem. 10 years earlier, a desperate family, Elimelech, Naomi, and their 2 sons, load a cart in the pre-dawn darkness. Neighbors whisper from doorways, traitors, covenant breakers. The famine has turned the land to dust, cracking the earth like broken pottery. But leaving God's land for Moab, the enemy, is unthinkable. Moab, the nation born from Lot's shame. Moab, whose king once hired a prophet to curse Israel. To go there is to step outside the covenant, outside the promise. The elders block the gate as the first light breaks over the hills. "You'll curse your sons, Elimelech," one of them says, his voice hard as flint. Naomi's face is stone, but her hands shake as she lifts her younger boy into the cart. She doesn't argue. There's no argument left when your children are starving. Elimelech snaps the reins. The cart lurches forward. He doesn't look back. The journey is silent. Dust and distance. When they cross into Moab, Naomi feels it in her chest, a severing, like a cord cut. She tells herself it's temporary, just until the rains return, just until the barley grows again, just until... But 10 years pass, 10 years in a foreign land, where the gods have names she refuses to learn and the people speak with accents that never stop sounding strange. Elimelech finds work. The boys grow into men, and then, against all expectation, something shifts. Her sons marry. Mahlon chooses Ruth, a Moabite girl with dark eyes and a quiet smile. Kilian chooses Orpah, Ruth's cousin, whose laugh fills the house like sunlight. Naomi watches her sons bring these foreign women into her home, and she doesn't know what to feel. Relief that her boys won't be alone. Grief that they're binding themselves to a land she still calls exile. She teaches the girls to bake bread the way her mother taught her. She shows them how to spin wool, how to salt meat for storage, but she does not teach them to pray. That part of her life has gone silent, locked away in a place too painful to touch. Ruth watches her mother-in-law carefully. She sees how Naomi's hands pause sometimes in the middle of kneading dough, how her eyes drift toward the western hills where Judah lies beyond sight. And on certain mornings, Ruth wakes early and finds Naomi standing in the doorway, hands raised, lips moving in a language Ruth doesn't understand. The posture is unmistakable. Prayer. But prayer to whom? The Moabite gods demand noise, spectacle, sacrifice. Naomi's God seems to require only this, empty hands and a broken voice. Ruth asks Mahlon about it one evening. "Who does your mother pray to?" Mahlon smiles, sad and distant. "The God of Abraham. The God who made a promise to our people." He pauses. "A promise we left behind when we came here." "Does he hear her?" Ruth asks. Mahlon looks away. "I don't know anymore." But Ruth can't stop thinking about it. She kneels beside Naomi one morning and asks, "Why do you still pray when everything has been taken from you?" Naomi's hands go still in the bread dough. For a long moment, she doesn't answer. Then quietly, because even when he is silent, he is mine. Ruth doesn't understand. In Moab, when the gods are silent, you bring a larger offering, you make a louder vow. But Naomi's God demands nothing and gives nothing back as far as Ruth can see. Yet Naomi keeps praying. It makes no sense, and yet Ruth can't look away from it. Then, without warning, everything collapses. Elimelech dies first, a fever that takes him in 3 days. Naomi becomes a ghost in her own house, hollow-eyed and silent. A year later, Mahlon begins coughing. Within a month, he's gone. Kilian follows 2 weeks after. The house that was once filled with voices and laughter becomes a tomb. Ruth sits beside Mahlon's grave, numb. She's a widow at 23. No children, no future. In Moab, a childless widow is little more than a burden, a mouth to feed with no hands to justify the feeding. She should return to her father's house, find another husband, start again. But when she comes back to the house, she finds Naomi packing. The old woman moves with terrible efficiency, folding garments, filling a single bag. Her face is carved from grief and something harder, resolve. "Where are you going?" Ruth asks. "Home," Naomi says, "to Judah. I heard the famine has ended. The Lord has given his people food again." Her voice is flat, drained of everything but the raw will to move. "I'll come with you," Ruth says. Naomi stops, looks at her. "No." The word is sharp, final. Naomi crosses the room and takes Ruth's face in her hands. "Listen to me. I have nothing to offer you. No sons for you to marry, no inheritance to give. I'm going back to a land where I'll be a bitter old woman with nothing but memories. You're young. You have a chance here. Go back to your mother's house. Find a husband. Live." Orpah enters, carrying bread wrapped in cloth. She's been crying. "I'll go with you to the road," she says quietly. The 3 women walk in silence. The sun climbs higher. At the crossroads where the path splits, one way back to Moab, one toward Judah, Naomi stops. She kisses them both. "Go back, daughters. May the Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me." Orpah weeps, kisses Naomi again, and turns back toward Moab. Her figure grows smaller in the distance. Ruth stands frozen at the crossroads. Moab behind her, familiar, safe, possible. Judah ahead, unknown, hostile, impossible. Naomi starts walking toward Judah without looking back, and Ruth remembers. Naomi's hands raised in prayer, her voice broken but unsilenced. "Even when he is silent, he is mine." Ruth runs. Her sandals slap the stone road. When she catches up, breathless, Naomi turns with something like anger in her eyes. "Your sister-in-law has gone back. Go with her." But Ruth drops to her knees in the dust, and the words come, not rehearsed, not calculated, but torn from someplace deeper than decision. "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." The silence that follows is absolute. Naomi stares at Ruth as if seeing a ghost. "Do you know what you're saying?" Her voice cracks. "Do you understand what you're choosing?" Ruth's hands tremble, gripping Naomi's cloak. "No," she whispers. "I don't know what's ahead, but I know who you belong to, and I want to belong to him too." Naomi's face contorts. Grief, hope, fear, something like wonder all at once. She nods once, slowly, then "Get up. We have a long road ahead." They walk together toward Judah. The sun beats down. Ruth's mouth is dry, her heart hammering against her ribs. She has just severed every tie to her past, gambled her entire future on a God she doesn't know and a land that will hate her. She glances back one last time at the mountains of Moab, shrinking behind them, and then she turns her face forward, toward Judah, toward the unknown, toward whatever this invisible God has waiting in the silence ahead. The road to Bethlehem is longer than Ruth expected. Days of dust and heat, sleeping on rocky ground, rationing the little food they have. Naomi walks with the grim determination of someone who has already died inside and is simply delivering her body to the grave. She barely speaks. When Ruth tries to ask about Bethlehem, about what to expect, Naomi only says, "Expect nothing." But as they crest the final hill and the town comes into view, small, sun-baked, clinging to the hillside like a stubborn weed, something shifts in Naomi's face. Not hope. Something raw, recognition, memory, pain. They descend into the town at midday, when the sun is fiercest and the streets are quietest. But word travels fast in a small town. By the time they reach the well in the center square, a crowd has gathered, women mostly, faces Ruth doesn't know, eyes that sweep over her with undisguised suspicion. An older woman steps forward, peering at Naomi. Is this Naomi? The name hangs in the air. Naomi, pleasant one. The woman she was 10 years ago, before famine and exile and death carved her into something else entirely. Naomi's laugh is bitter as ash. Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara, bitter, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. The words fall like stones into water. The women shift uncomfortably. One mutters a prayer, another makes a gesture against evil. And then their eyes turn to Ruth, standing slightly behind Naomi, trying to make herself small. "Who's this?" someone asks. "My daughter-in-law," Naomi says flatly. "Ruth, from Moab." The silence that follows is colder than the silence before. Ruth feels it like a change in air pressure before a storm. Moabite. The word doesn't need to be spoken again. It's written in every narrowed eye, every turned shoulder, every protective hand that pulls a child closer. An old man hawking and spitting into the dust near Ruth's feet. Not directly at her, but close enough. The message is clear. She is contamination. She is the enemy's daughter. She carries the stain of Lot's incest, of Balak's curse, of every ancient hostility that still pulses in the blood memory of this place. Ruth's breath catches in her chest. She knew it would be hard, but knowing and feeling are different countries entirely. Naomi turns without another word and walks toward the edge of town, toward a house that looks half collapsed, its roof sagging, its door hanging crooked on leather hinges. Ruth follows, feeling the weight of every stair boring into her back. Inside, the house is worse than it looked from outside. The roof has gaps that let in rain and sun. The grain storage jars are empty, their mouths dark and accusing. There's a single sleeping mat, threadbare and stained. Naomi stands in the center of the room, arms hanging at her sides, and for the first time since they left Moab, she weeps. Not loud, dramatic weeping, just silent tears tracking through the dust on her face, shoulders shaking. Ruth wants to comfort her but doesn't know how, so she does the only thing she can think of. She begins to clean. She sweeps the floor with a bundle of dried grass. She hangs their few possessions on pegs. She makes the space livable, because if she stops moving, she'll have to think about what she's done. That night, they share the sleeping mat and a crust of bread someone left at the door. Charity or pity, Ruth can't tell which. The stars are visible through the gaps in the roof. Ruth lies awake, listening to Naomi's ragged breathing, and prays for the first time to the God she has chosen. She doesn't know the proper words, doesn't know the rituals or the postures, so she just whispers into the darkness. "I don't know if you hear Moabites, but I'm yours now. If you're real, please, show me I didn't make a mistake." No answer comes, just the night wind and the distant bark of a dog, and Naomi's broken breathing beside her. Morning arrives harsh and bright. Ruth wakes to find Naomi already up, sitting by the window with a scrap of parchment in her hands. The Hebrew letters mean nothing to Ruth, But Naomi's voice is steadier than it was yesterday as she reads aloud, translating as she goes. When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Leave them for the poor and the foreigner. She looks up at Ruth. It's called the law of gleaning. It's mercy, barely, but it's something. Widows and foreigners are allowed to follow behind the harvesters and pick up what's left behind. It won't be much, but it might keep us from starving. Ruth nods slowly. Then I'll go. Naomi's eyes search her face. You don't know what you're asking. The fields are full of young men. Some of them will see a foreign woman alone and think... She doesn't finish, but Ruth understands. I'll be careful, Ruth says. No, Naomi says quietly. You'll be hated. There's a difference, but they both know there's no choice. So Ruth wraps herself in the plainest shawl she has, ties her hair back, and walks out into the early morning light. The barley fields stretch out beyond the town, golden and rippling in the breeze. Workers are already scattered across them, bent low with sickles flashing. Ruth approaches the nearest field, where a foreman is directing the harvest. "Und please," she says, her accent thick and unmistakable, "may I glean behind the harvesters?" The foreman looks her up and down, his lip curls slightly. "You're the Moabite." Not a question, an identification. Ruth nods. He jerks his head toward the far corner of the field, where the barley is thinnest and the ground is rockiest. There. Don't bother the workers. Don't steal from the bundles. Take only what falls. Ruth bows her head and walks to the corner he indicated. The other gleaners, older women, children, a few bent old men, give her a wide berth. She kneels in the stubble and begins to work. The sun climbs. Her back aches. Her hands bleed from the sharp stalks. The grain she manages to gather is pitiful. A handful here, a few stalks there. Around her, the harvesters sing work songs in Hebrew, their voices rising and falling with the rhythm of the sickles. She doesn't know the words, but the melodies are achingly beautiful. Midday comes. The workers break for water and bread. Ruth watches them gather in the shade of an ancient oak, passing around wineskins and laughter. Her throat is parched, her stomach a knot of hunger. She approaches the water jars left at the edge of the field. A young man, no more than 20, sees her coming. He grins at his companion and accidentally tips one of the jars over just as Ruth reaches for it. Water spills into the dust, darkening the ground. Laughter erupts around her. "Clumsy," the young man says, his eyes cold. "Better be more careful, Moabite." Ruth's face burns. She turns away without a word and returns to her corner of the field. Her throat is dry as sand, but she kneels again and keeps working. Because what else can she do? She chose this. She chose Naomi's God, Naomi's people, Naomi's land, and now she's learning what that choice costs. But across the field, someone is watching. A man on horseback, surveying the harvest. He's older than the young workers, maybe 40, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. His eyes have been tracking Ruth for the past hour, the way she works without complaint, the way she keeps her head down, the way she didn't retaliate when the water was spilled. He dismounts and approaches his foreman. "Who is that woman?" The foreman follows his gaze. "Oh, that's the Moabite who came back with Naomi. Ruth, I think. She asked permission to glean this morning, and you sent her to the worst part of the field." The foreman shrugs. "She's foreign. You thought wrong," the man says quietly. "His name is Boaz, and this is his field, his harvest, his authority. Make sure she has water, and tell the men to leave her alone. If I hear of anyone bothering her, they'll answer to me." The foreman blinks, surprised, but nods. Boaz watches Ruth a moment longer, her methodical movements, her refusal to quit despite the obvious hostility, and something in his chest tightens. He knows what it is to be an outsider. His own mother was Rahab, the Canaanite prostitute who hid the Israelite spies. The town may have forgotten, but Boaz never has. He knows the weight of foreign blood in Hebrew veins. He returns to his horse, but before mounting, he gives one more order. Drop some grain from the bundles. Make it look accidental, but make sure she has enough. The foreman's eyes widen. Sir, that's generous. Boaz's voice is firm. It's just, do it. The afternoon wears on. Ruth continues working, unaware that anything has changed, but slowly she begins to notice stalks of barley lying near her feet that weren't there before. Whole handfuls, still bound together, more than any gleaner should reasonably find. Her heart begins to pound. Is this a trap? A test? She glances around, but the harvesters aren't looking at her. They're working, singing, moving on to the next section. She gathers the grain quickly, reverently, her hands shaking. By the time the sun begins its descent, her sack is full, impossibly full, more grain than she could have hoped for in a week, let alone a single day. She threshes it quickly by the side of the field, separating grain from chaff. And when she's done, she hoists the sack onto her shoulder. It's heavy, gloriously, miraculously heavy. She walks back toward town, legs trembling from exhaustion and something that might be hope. Naomi is sitting in the doorway when Ruth returns. She looks up, sees the bulging sack, and her eyes go wide. Where did you glean today? Her voice is sharp with disbelief. Who noticed you? Blessed be the man who took notice of you. Ruth sets the sack down. The field I worked in belongs to a man named Boaz. Naomi goes absolutely still. The name hangs between them like a held breath. Then Naomi grabs Ruth's arms, her fingers digging in with desperate strength. Boaz, she whispers. Ruth, do you understand? Boaz is a relative of ours. He's a kinsman redeemer. Ruth shakes her head, confused. What does that mean? Naomi's eyes are bright, not quite with tears, not quite with hope, but something in between. It means he's family, close family. And according to the law, a kinsman redeemer has the right, the responsibility to... She stops, swallows hard. To buy back family land, to marry a widow and continue her husband's name, to restore what was lost. Ruth's heart is pounding now. But I'm not. You're my daughter-in-law, Naomi says fiercely. You're Marlon's widow. That makes you part of this family, covenant or not. If Boaz chose to redeem us... She trails off, as if afraid to say it out loud. Ruth sits down slowly, the weight of the day pressing on her. He left extra grain for me. His workers dropped it where I could find it. Naomi is silent for a long moment, then quietly, that's not nothing. They eat bread and barley that night, more food than they've had in months. And for the first time since Elimelech died, Naomi begins to pray aloud, not in bitterness, not in accusation, but in something that sounds almost like gratitude. Ruth listens, not understanding all the words, but hearing in them the same stubborn thread of hope she heard that morning in Moab, when she chose this impossible path. Outside, the stars wheel overhead, and in the fields belonging to Boaz, the grain continues to ripen, golden and heavy, waiting for the harvest that will change everything. Ruth returns to Boaz's field the next morning, and the morning after that, and every morning for weeks. The barley harvest is in full swing, and the rhythm of the work becomes familiar. The bend and gather, the ache in her back, the sun burning her neck, despite the shawl she wraps around her head. She arrives at dawn and stays until the shadows grow long, gleaning every stalk she can find. The hostility doesn't disappear, but it becomes a known quantity. The young men still mutter when she passes. The other gleaners still keep their distance. But no one spills her water again, and no one blocks her path. Word has spread quietly but certainly that Boaz has put his protection over her. And Boaz is not a man to cross. She sees him sometimes, riding through the fields or standing with his foreman, discussing the harvest. He never approaches her directly, but she feels his attention like warmth from a distant fire. One day when she straightens from her work to press a hand against her aching back, she catches him watching. Their eyes meet across the golden expanse. He nods, just slightly. She nods back. Then he turns away, and the moment passes. Every evening, Ruth brings home a sack of grain that should be impossible for a gleaner to gather. Naomi never asks how much is charity and how much is Ruth's labor. She simply receives it with trembling hands and thanks the God she once accused of emptying her. The house begins to feel less like a tomb. They have bread to eat, grain to store. Naomi's eyes lose some of their hollow desperation. She even smiles once when Ruth tells her about the old woman in the field who finally spoke to her. Just a few words about the weather, but words nonetheless. Human connection, thin as spider silk, but real. But the town itself remains cold. When Ruth walks through the market to trade grain for oil or salt, conversations stop. Merchants charge her more than they charge others. Children throw pebbles at her shadow and run away laughing. She is tolerated, barely, because of Naomi and because of Boaz's favor. But she is not wanted. She is the permanent outsider, the stain that won't wash clean. One afternoon, as she's leaving the field, a group of older women blocks her path. Their faces are hard, carved from years of sun and judgment. "You think you're clever," one of them says. "Coming here, worming your way into Naomi's house, getting Boaz's attention." Ruth keeps her eyes down. "I only want to work, to care for my mother-in-law." "Your mother-in-law," another woman spits. "You're the reason she came back empty. Foreign women always bring curses. First her sons married you and your cousin, then they died. Coincidence?" The accusation lands like a blow. Ruth's breath catches. She has thought this herself in the dark hours before dawn, that maybe she is cursed, that maybe her foreign blood carries poison, that maybe Marlon would still be alive if he'd married a Hebrew girl. But before she can respond, a voice cuts through the tension. "That's enough." The women turn. An old woman approaches, bent with age, leaning on a staff. Ruth recognizes her, the one who spoke up at the gate when they first arrived, the one who defended Naomi's faithfulness. Her name is Miriam, and she's older than anyone in Bethlehem, old enough that even the harsh women defer to her. "This girl," Miriam says, her voice reedy but firm, "has done more for Naomi than any of you. She left her gods and her land to serve the God of Israel. And you throw stones at faithfulness?" She shakes her head. "Go home. Examine your own hearts before you judge hers." The women mutter but disperse. Ruth stands frozen, eyes stinging with unshed tears. Miriam approaches and places a gnarled hand on Ruth's arm. "Don't let them make you small," she says quietly. "I've lived long enough to see that God's mercy is wider than our walls. Keep working. Keep choosing well. The rest will unfold as it must." Ruth nods, not trusting her voice. Miriam pats her arm once and shuffles away, leaving Ruth standing alone in the dusty street as the sun sinks toward the horizon. That night, Ruth can't sleep. She lies on the mat beside Naomi, staring up at the stars through the gaps in the roof, and whispers into the darkness, "Did I do the right thing, coming here?" Naomi is quiet for so long that Ruth thinks she's asleep. Then, softly, "I don't know, but you did the brave thing." Sometimes that has to be enough. The weeks pass, barley harvest ends, and wheat harvest begins. Ruth continues gleaning in Boaz's fields. The sacks she brings home are still impossibly full, and Naomi stops questioning it. They both understand what's happening, though neither speaks it aloud. Boaz is providing quietly, carefully, without making a public show. He is sheltering them under the shadow of his authority. One evening, as Ruth is gathering the last stalks before sunset, Boaz approaches her directly for the first time. She sees him coming, and her heart hammers against her ribs. She straightens, brushing grain dust from her dress, suddenly aware of how rough her hands have become, how sun-dark her skin. "Ruth," he says. His voice is kind, steady. "May I speak with you?" She nods, not trusting herself to speak. "I've been watching you work," he says. You haven't gone to any other field." "Why?" The question catches her off guard. This field has been kind to me. You've been kind to me." He studies her face. "I've heard all about what you've done for Naomi since your husband died. How you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you didn't know. May the Lord repay you for what you've done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." The words pierce something deep inside her. Under whose wings? She has felt so exposed, so vulnerable, so utterly unprotected in this foreign land. But Boaz is saying she's not unprotected, that the invisible God she gambled everything on has wings, and she is beneath them. "My Lord," she says, her voice breaking slightly, "you have shown me more kindness than I deserve. You've spoken to me as if I mattered, though I'm not even one of your servants." Boaz's expression softens. "Stay close to my workers. Don't go to another field. I've told the men not to bother you. When you're thirsty, drink from the jars they've filled." He pauses, then adds quietly, "You're safer here than anywhere else in Bethlehem." It's both a promise and a warning. He knows how precarious her position is, how one wrong move, one unguarded moment, could destroy her. And he's offering her the only protection he can give without causing a scandal: his public favor, his authority over his workers, his watchful presence. "Thank you," Ruth whispers. He nods and walks away, but the warmth of his words stays with her long after the sun sets. That evening, Ruth tells Naomi everything. The old woman listens intently, her eyes bright and calculating. When Ruth finishes, Naomi is silent for a long moment. "He's protecting you," she says finally. "That's good. That's more than I hoped for." She pauses. "Stay in his fields, Ruth. Don't wander. Don't give anyone reason to speak against you. And don't give up hope." "Hope for what?" Ruth asks. But Naomi just shakes her head. "One step at a time, daughter, one step at a time." The wheat harvest continues. The days blur together, rising before dawn, walking to the fields, working until her hands bleed, returning with sacks of grain that feed them and leave surplus besides. It's a hard life, but it's a life. And for a Moabite widow in Judah, that's more than she had any right to expect. But Ruth can't shake the feeling that something is building, that these weeks of gleaning are not an ending, but a preparation. She sees it in the way Naomi watches her, thoughtful and quiet. She sees it in the way Boaz's eyes follow her across the field, protective and careful. She sees it in the whispers of the other workers, the speculative glances, the unasked questions hanging in the air. Late one afternoon, as the wheat stalks turn golden in the slanting light, Ruth pauses to wipe sweat from her forehead. She looks out over the field, the workers singing, the grain swaying, the hills of Judah rolling away into the distance. And for the first time since she left Moab, she feels something other than fear or determination. She feels belonging, fragile, tentative, incomplete, but real. Like a seed pushing through hard ground, breaking into light. That night, she dreams of wings, great, sheltering wings that cover a multitude, that gather the scattered and the lost, that make a home for the homeless. She wakes in the darkness with tears on her face and Naomi's hand on her shoulder. "What is it?" Naomi whispers. Ruth shakes her head. "I don't know. I dreamed I was safe." Naomi squeezes her shoulder. "Hold on to that," she says quietly. "We're going to need it." The next day, Ruth returns to the field, but something has shifted. The harvesters are singing a different song, something about weddings and covenant and the blessing of God on new beginnings. She doesn't understand all the words, but the melody wraps around her like a promise. Boaz rides through the field on his way to town. He sees Ruth and reins in his horse. For a moment, they simply look at each other across the distance. Then he raises his hand in greeting. Ruth raises hers in return. And in that simple gesture, two hands lifted, two hearts acknowledging each other across the space that separates them, something ancient and irrevocable begins to move. Like a stone rolled away from a tomb, like a door opening in a wall, like the first drop of rain after a long drought. The harvest is almost finished, and the story is just beginning. The wheat harvest ends on a day thick with heat and anticipation. The last sheaves are gathered, the last bundles tied. Workers wipe sweat from their faces and look toward the threshing floor with relief and excitement. Because tonight is not just the end of labor, it's the beginning of celebration. The threshing floor ceremony is one of the most important nights of the year in Bethlehem. It's where grain is separated from chaff, where the year's work is measured and weighed, where business deals are struck and alliances are forged. It's a night of wine and bread, laughter and negotiation, gratitude and hope. Everyone who matters will be there. Ruth finishes her gleaning as the sun drops low. Her final sack is smaller than usual. The field has been picked nearly clean, but she's grateful nonetheless. She hoists it onto her shoulder and begins the walk back to town, her body aching with the particular exhaustion of work completed. But as she approaches Naomi's house, she notices something different. The door is open and lamplight spills into the twilight. Inside, Naomi is moving with purpose, pulling things from chests Ruth didn't know they had. Cloth, a small vial of oil, a comb made of bone. "Good," Naomi says when Ruth enters. "You're back. Put down the grain." "We have work to do." Ruth sets down her sack, confused. "What kind of work?" Naomi turns, and her face is fierce with determination. "Tonight is the threshing floor ceremony. Boaz will be there, celebrating with his workers, overseeing the measuring of the grain. And tonight, Ruth, you're going to go to him." Ruth's stomach drops. "What?" Naomi crosses to her, taking both her hands. "Listen to me. Wash yourself. Put on your best clothes. Go down to the threshing floor. But don't let him see you until he's finished eating and drinking. Watch where he lies down. Then go quietly, uncover his feet, and lie down there. He'll tell you what to do." The words land like stones in deep water. Ruth stares at her mother-in-law, trying to understand what's being asked. "Naomi, that's scandalous. If anyone sees you, they'll see a widow making a claim according to the law." Naomi's voice is urgent but steady. "A kinsman redeemer has the right to marry his relative's widow and restore the family line. What I'm asking you to do, it's a symbolic request. You're asking him to spread his garment over you, to cover you, to take you under his protection as his wife. It's legal, it's proper, but it requires courage." Ruth's hands are shaking. "And if he refuses, if he's offended, He won't refuse," Naomi says quietly. "I've seen the way he looks at you, Ruth. I've seen how he's provided for us, how he's protected you. He cares, but he's a man of honor. He won't act without your invitation. You have to make the first move." Ruth pulls her hands free, pacing the small room. Her mind is spinning. What Naomi is suggesting is bold to the point of recklessness. To approach a man alone at night, to lie at his feet, even if the symbolism is legal, even if the intention is pure. The appearance will be damning if it goes wrong. But if it goes right, she and Naomi will have a future, a home, a name. She'll go from being a tolerated foreigner to being a wife in Israel, protected by law and covenant. And Marlon's name, his memory, will be carried forward. She looks at Naomi, seeing in the old woman's eyes the same desperate hope that drove them both to this point. Naomi gambled everything by returning to Bethlehem. Ruth gambled everything by coming with her. And now, once again, they're being asked to gamble. "I'll do it," Ruth whispers. Naomi's eyes fill with tears. She pulls Ruth close, holding her tightly. "You're braver than I ever was," she murmurs. Then she steps back, wiping her eyes. "Now, let's get you ready." They heat water and Ruth washes, scrubbing away weeks of field dust and sweat. Naomi helps her comb out her hair, working through the tangles with patient fingers. The good dress, the one Ruth wore on her wedding day to Mahlon, is pulled from the chest and shaken out. It smells of cedar and memory. Ruth puts it on, and Naomi steps back, appraising. "You're beautiful," she says softly. "Don't forget that tonight. You're not a beggar asking for scraps. You're a daughter of covenant making a lawful claim." Ruth nods, though her heart is hammering so hard she can barely breathe. As the last light fades, she wraps herself in a dark cloak and leaves the house. The streets are quiet. Most of the town is either at the threshing floor or home for the night. She walks quickly, keeping to the shadows, praying no one sees her. The threshing floor is on a hilltop outside town, a flat expanse of packed earth where the wind blows freely. As Ruth approaches, she hears the sounds of celebration, laughter, singing, the stomp of feet on stone. Torches blaze against the night sky. She circles wide, staying in the darkness beyond the firelight, and finds a place where she can watch unseen. Boaz is there, at the center of everything. He's laughing with his workers, clapping them on the back, overseeing the division of the grain. He looks different tonight, relaxed, joyful, fully at ease in a way Ruth has never seen him. This is his world, his land, his people, and she's about to walk into it uninvited and ask him to bind his life to hers. The celebration continues for hours. Ruth waits, shivering despite the warm night, watching as the wine flows and the food is shared. Workers dance. Songs rise into the star-filled sky. Slowly, people begin to drift away, back to their homes, to their families, to their beds. Boaz stays until the end, as a good master should. He speaks with the last of his workers, makes final arrangements for guarding the grain through the night, and then finally, he walks to the edge of the threshing floor where the grain is piled high. He's eaten well and drunk enough wine to sleep soundly. He lies down beside the pile, wrapping his cloak around himself, and within minutes his breathing deepens into sleep. Ruth waits. She counts her own heartbeats, lets the silence settle. The torches burn low. The guards are posted at the far end of the threshing floor, their attention on the road, not on their master sleeping by the grain. She stands. Her legs feel like water. She walks forward slowly, each step requiring conscious will. When she reaches Boaz, she kneels beside him. He doesn't stir. In the dim starlight, his face is peaceful, unguarded. She sees gray in his beard, lines around his eyes. He's not a young man, but there's strength in him, steadiness, the kind of strength that protects rather than conquers. With trembling hands, Ruth reaches for the edge of his cloak. She lifts it carefully and uncovers his feet. The night air touches his skin. Then she lies down at his feet, pulling her own cloak around herself, and waits. The hours crawl by. Ruth doesn't sleep. She lies still, hardly breathing, terrified and determined in equal measure. Above her, the stars wheel slowly across the sky. Midnight comes. Boaz stirs in his sleep, shifting position. His foot brushes against her, and suddenly he's awake. She hears the sharp intake of his breath, feels him go tense. "Who are you?" His voice is low, wary. Ruth sits up. Her voice comes out barely above a whisper. "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread the corner of your garment over me, for you are a kinsman redeemer." Silence. Absolute, terrifying silence. Ruth can hear her own pulse thundering in her ears. She's just asked him to marry her in the most public private moment possible. Everything hangs on his next words. Boaz sits up slowly. He's staring at her, and even in the darkness she can see his expression. Shock, wonder, something that looks almost like pain. "Blessed are you of the Lord, my daughter," he says finally, and his voice is thick with emotion. "This kindness you've shown is greater than the first. You haven't run after younger men, whether rich or poor." Ruth's breath catches. He's not refusing. He's not angry. He's moved. Boaz continues, his words careful and deliberate. "Now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character." He pauses, and his voice drops. "But there's something you need to know." Ruth's heart clenches. Here it comes. The obstacle. The reason why this can't work. "Although it's true that I'm a kinsman redeemer," Boaz says quietly, "there's another man who is more closely related than I am. By law, he has the first right to redeem you." The words fall between them like a wall suddenly built. Ruth feels the hope that had been building in her chest crack and splinter. "Stay here tonight," Boaz says gently. "In the morning, if he wants to redeem you, good. Let him redeem, but if he's not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it." His voice strengthens with certainty. "Lie here until morning." Ruth lies back down at his feet, but she doesn't close her eyes. The night stretches ahead, vast and uncertain. She's made her claim. She's laid everything bare. And now she has to wait again to see if the God she chose will honor the choice she's made. Boaz doesn't sleep either. She can tell by his breathing, by the way he shifts and settles, but never truly relaxes. They lie there in the darkness, two people separated by propriety and law, but bound by something deeper: covenant, loyalty, the slow-growing recognition that their lives have been moving toward this moment for longer than either of them knew. Just before dawn, when the sky begins to lighten from black to deep blue, Boaz speaks again. "No one must know that a woman came to the threshing floor. Give me your shawl." Ruth sits up and hands it to him. He fills it with grain, 6 measures, far more than she could carry easily. He helps her lift it onto her shoulders, and for just a moment his hands rest on her arms, steadying her, claiming her, in a way that has nothing to do with law and everything to do with choice. "Go back before anyone sees you," he says quietly, "and tell Naomi everything. I promise you, this will be settled today." Ruth nods, not trusting her voice. She turns and walks away from the threshing floor, back toward town, carrying grain that feels heavier than gold. Behind her, Boaz stands watching until she's out of sight. When Ruth reaches Naomi's house, the old woman is already awake, sitting by the door as if she hasn't slept all night. She stands quickly when Ruth appears. "How did it go, my daughter?" Ruth sets down the grain and tells her everything. Every word, every silence, every moment of the impossible night. When she finishes, Naomi's eyes are bright with tears and something fiercer. Hope that's been tested by fire and found strong. "Wait," Naomi says firmly. "Don't do anything else. Just wait. Boaz won't rest until he's settled this matter today." So they wait, as the sun rises, as the town wakes, as everything they've hoped for and feared hangs in the balance, dependent on the choice of a man whose name they don't even know. The sun climbs higher. Ruth and Naomi sit in the house, hands idle, hearts racing. Every sound from the street makes them tense. Is that Boaz coming with news? Is that the crowd gathering for something? But the sounds pass, footsteps fading, voices moving on to other concerns. "He'll go to the gate," Naomi says, more to herself than to Ruth. The town gate is where legal matters are settled. He'll gather the elders. He'll confront the other redeemer. By midday, we'll know. Ruth nods, but her stomach is a knot of dread. All night she felt brave, reckless even. But in the harsh light of morning, the magnitude of what she's done settles over her like a weight. She's asked a man to marry her, a man above her station, a Hebrew who could have any woman in Bethlehem. And she's not just asking for herself, she's asking him to take on Naomi, to redeem land, to bind himself to a family marked by tragedy and foreignness. What if the other redeemer says yes? What if Boaz fought for her but lost? What if she ends up married to a man who sees her only as an obligation, a burden attached to a piece of property? "Stop," Naomi says, watching her face. "I can see you spiraling. Trust the process. Trust Boaz. Trust the God you chose." Ruth takes a shaky breath. "What if I trusted wrong?" Naomi's hand covers hers, firm and warm. "Then we'll face it together." "But I don't think you did. I've lived long enough to recognize when God's hand is moving, and daughter, he's moving." They wait. Meanwhile, across town, Boaz has not slept. The moment Ruth disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness, he rose and walked straight to the town gate. He's there now, watching the road, waiting for the man whose name is Ploni Almoni, so-and-so, the closer kinsman whose decision will determine everything. The gate area is already stirring with early morning activity, merchants setting up, old men taking their customary seats, children running errands. Boaz positions himself where he can't be missed, and he waits with the patience of a man who knows the stakes. Ploni arrives within the hour, a middle-aged man with the comfortable look of someone who's done well for himself. His clothes are fine, but not ostentatious. His bearing is that of a man accustomed to respect. He's not a bad man, just a careful one, cautious, risk-averse. Boaz steps into his path. "Friend, come over here and sit down." Ploni looks surprised but not displeased. Boaz is an important man in Bethlehem. This attention is flattering. He sits. Boaz turns to the gathering crowd. "I need 10 elders. Will you serve as witnesses?" It's not really a question. Within minutes, 10 of the town's leading men are seated in a semicircle. The legal quorum. Whatever happens next will be binding. Word spreads quickly. A public assembly at the gate, Boaz presiding, the elders gathered. This is significant. People begin to cluster around, curious and excited. Ruth's name is already on some lips. The Moabite. The one who came back with Naomi, the one Boaz favored in the fields. Boaz turns to Ploni, his voice clear and formal. "Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our brother Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people." Ploni's eyes light up. Land. Elimelech's land. It's a good piece of property, well situated, potentially valuable, and the price will be low. A desperate widow has no negotiating power. "If you will redeem it," Boaz continues, "do so. But if you will not, tell me, so I will know. For no one has the right to do it except you, and I am next in line." Ploni doesn't hesitate. "I will redeem it." The words ring out clearly. Several people in the crowd nod approvingly. It's the right thing to do, taking care of a kinsman's land, keeping it in the family. Ploni looks pleased with himself, already calculating the value, the potential, and then Boaz springs the trap. His voice remains calm, almost casual, but every word is precisely placed. "On the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property." The effect is instantaneous. Ploni's face drains of color. The crowd erupts in whispers. The elders exchange significant glances, because what Boaz has just done is link the land redemption to a levirate marriage, the ancient law requiring a kinsman to marry his relative's widow and raise up children in the dead man's name. It's legal, it's proper, but it's also complicated and costly. If Ploni marries Ruth, any son she bears will be considered Mahlon's heir, not his. That son will inherit Elimelech's land, the very land Ploni would be buying. Ploni would pay for land, maintain it, improve it, and then watch it pass to a child who legally isn't his. His own inheritance would be diminished to provide for another man's line, And there's more. Ruth is a Moabite. Any child of hers will carry foreign blood. In Plony's family, in Plony's legacy, forever. Plony stands abruptly, his earlier confidence shattered. I cannot redeem it, he stammers, because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it. The formal renunciation requires a symbolic act. Plony removes his sandal, the ancient sign of transferring rights, and hands it to Boaz. His hand is shaking slightly. He won't meet Boaz's eyes. You redeem it, he says again, and there's almost panic in his voice. He's trying to sound noble, but everyone can hear the relief underneath. He's escaped. He's saved his inheritance, his family line, his reputation from the contamination of Moabite blood. Boaz takes the sandal. His face is calm, but his eyes are blazing with something fierce and joyful. He turns to the elders and the crowd. Today, you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown. The words ring out like a bell. Acquired. Wife. His voice doesn't waver on Moabite. He says it clearly, claiming it, owning it. This is not a shameful concession. This is a deliberate choice. But the crowd is not entirely convinced. The elders shift uncomfortably. One of them, a man named Ahab with a reputation for strict interpretation of the law, stands. Boaz. His voice carries warning. You're a pillar of this community. We respect you, but we must speak plainly. Are you certain you want to bind yourself to her? He doesn't say Ruth's name, just her. The pronoun is loaded with everything unsaid. Foreign, other, contaminating, wrong. Another voice from the crowd, emboldened. The law in Deuteronomy forbids Moabites from entering the assembly of the Lord, even to the 10th generation. How can you marry her without violating covenant? The objection hangs in the air, sharp and dangerous. And suddenly the atmosphere shifts from curious to hostile. This isn't just about property or marriage anymore. This is about the boundaries of belonging, about who gets to be inside the covenant and who must remain forever outside. Boaz's jaw tightens. He's anticipated this, but hearing it spoken aloud still cuts. He looks out over the crowd, seeing the mixture of expressions, some sympathetic, some condemning, many simply uncertain, and at the edge of the gathering, barely visible in the shadow of a doorway, he sees Ruth. She's come. Despite Naomi's instructions to wait, she's here, wrapped in her cloak, face half hidden, but her eyes are visible, and in them Boaz sees naked fear. She knows what's being said. She understands that she's about to be declared unclean, unlawful, unworthy. Something hardens in Boaz's chest. He turns back to Ahab. You quote Deuteronomy, he says, his voice quiet but carrying. Let me remind you of the context. That passage forbids Moabites who opposed Israel in the wilderness, who refused us bread and water, who hired Balaam to curse us. It speaks of hostility, not heritage, of choice, not blood. He takes a step forward, his voice strengthening. Ruth has not opposed Israel. She has chosen Israel. She left her gods, her land, her future, everything, to follow the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. She has clung to Naomi when everyone else would have abandoned her. She has worked in our fields with humility and dignity. She has honored our laws and respected our ways. Ahab opens his mouth to object, but Boaz raises his hand. I'm not finished. You want to talk about the law? The law commands us to love the foreigner, for we were foreigners in Egypt. The law provides for the widow and the alien. The law itself makes provision for redemption, for the outsider to be brought inside. That's what I'm doing. That's what the law, rightly understood, requires. The crowd is silent now, caught between two interpretations of the same ancient words. Boaz presses his advantage. My own mother was Rahab of Jericho, a Canaanite, a woman who chose the God of Israel and was grafted into our people. And from her line came my family, respectable, faithful, blessed. If God could redeem a Canaanite prostitute and make her the mother of a Hebrew lineage, can he not redeem a Moabite widow who has shown more covenant faithfulness than most of us? The reference to Rahab lands like a thunderbolt. Everyone knows the story. Everyone knows that Boaz himself carries foreign blood and has become one of the most respected men in Bethlehem. It's a personal testimony that can't be easily dismissed. But Ahab isn't ready to concede. That was different. How? Boaz's voice cracks like a whip. How is it different? Because it's in the past and you've made your peace with it. Because it's my mother and not your daughter-in-law. Don't hide prejudice behind piety, Ahab. At least have the courage to call it what it is. The accusation stuns the crowd. No one speaks to Ahab like this. No one questions his righteousness so directly, but Boaz isn't backing down. I fear the Lord more than I fear your opinions, Boaz continues, and now his voice is softer but somehow more powerful. This woman has shown covenant faithfulness that puts us all to shame. She has chosen our God. She has honored our customs. She has loved her mother-in-law with a devotion that should be written in our sacred texts. And you dare call that a curse. He turns to the crowd, his eyes blazing. If marrying her is a sin, let the judgment fall on me. But I will not turn away a woman who has turned toward the God of Abraham. I will not reject what God has clearly accepted, and if that makes me unclean in your eyes, then so be it. But I know what I've seen in her. I know faithfulness when I see it, and I will not betray that. The silence that follows is absolute. Ruth, hidden in the doorway, has tears streaming down her face. She's hearing a man defend not just her legality, but her worth, her character, her choice. He's risking his reputation, his standing, his peace with the community for her. And then, from the back of the crowd, a voice. The old woman Miriam, who spoke up when Ruth first arrived. She pushes through, leaning on her staff, ancient and weathered. He's right, she says, her voice cracking but clear. I've lived longer than anyone here. I remember when Naomi's family left. I remember the whispers, the judgment. And I see now that the foreigner who came back with her has more loyalty in her little finger than most of us have in our whole bodies. She turns to Ruth, who's been spotted now, her hiding place revealed. Come here, girl. Don't stand in shadows. Not anymore. Ruth hesitates, then steps forward. The crowd parts reluctantly. She walks toward the elders, toward Boaz, her head high despite her trembling. When she reaches them, she stands beside Boaz, exposed and vulnerable and defiant all at once. Miriam reaches out and touches Ruth's face gently. Maybe this is what covenant looks like when it's real instead of ritual. Maybe this is what happens when God writes his law on a willing heart instead of fearful stone. Another elder, younger than Ahab and less rigid, stands. The law provides for redemption. Boaz is following the law. If he's willing to take the risk, to accept the responsibility, who are we to stand in the way? Murmurs ripple through the crowd, some agreeing, some still resistant. But the tide is shifting, slowly, reluctantly, but shifting nonetheless. Ahab looks around, seeing that he's losing ground. He could press further, but it would require calling into question Boaz's integrity, his judgment, his faithfulness. And that's a battle he's not sure he can win. Not with Miriam's testimony, not with Boaz's passionate defense, not with the visible evidence of Ruth's character standing right in front of him. Finally, grudgingly, Ahab sits down. Let it be on your head, then, Boaz. It already is, Boaz says quietly, and I count it joy. The eldest of the elders stands, a man so old he remembers Boaz as a boy. His voice is reedy but authoritative. Then let it be witnessed. Boaz has redeemed the land. Boaz has taken Ruth as his wife. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the family of Israel." The formal blessing breaks the tension. Other elders join in, adding their voices, "May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. Through the offspring the Lord gives you by this woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah." The reference to Tamar, another foreign woman, another scandalous story that became part of Israel's sacred history, is intentional. It's the elders' way of sanctioning what's happening, of placing Ruth's story in the lineage of God's unexpected redemptions. The crowd begins to echo the blessings, tentatively at first, then with growing enthusiasm. Not everyone is convinced, but enough are. And in a small town, that's enough to make something socially acceptable, if not universally approved. Boaz turns to Ruth. In front of everyone, he takes her hand. His grip is warm, steady, certain. "You're mine now," he says softly, "and I'm yours. Whatever comes, we face it together." Ruth can't speak, can only nod, tears blurring her vision. This man, this impossible, courageous, faithful man, has just fought for her in front of the whole town, has claimed her publicly, has defended her worth and her choice and her belonging. The crowd begins to disperse, the drama concluded. Some leave shaking their heads, some leave smiling, but everyone leaves knowing that something significant has happened. A line has been crossed, a precedent has been set. The boundaries of belonging have been pushed, just slightly, to include someone who was supposed to remain forever outside. Boaz and Ruth walk back through the town together. Naomi sees them coming and steps out of the house, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her weathered face. She knows immediately what's happened. "It's done," Boaz says simply. "Ruth is my wife. You're both under my protection now. You'll move into my house. You'll want for nothing. Your family name will be restored." Naomi looks at Ruth, then at Boaz, then back at Ruth. And for the first time since her sons died, she laughs. Not a bitter laugh, not a broken laugh, but a real laugh, full of wonder and disbelief and joy. "Blessed be the Lord," she whispers, "who has not left us without a kinsman redeemer today." But that night, lying in Naomi's house for the last time before the wedding, Ruth can't sleep. Everything she hoped for has come to pass. Boaz said yes. The elders approved. The town witnessed it. She's going to be married, protected, grafted into the covenant community. So why does her chest feel so tight? Why can't she shake the feeling that the hardest part is still ahead? Because approval at the gate is one thing, living with the consequences is another. And Ruth knows, with a certainty that settles in her bones, that the battle for acceptance is not over. It's only just begun. The wedding happens quickly, within days. There's no time for elaborate preparations, no lengthy engagement period. This is a practical matter as much as a sacred one. Boaz is restoring a family line, fulfilling the law, securing property rights. The ceremony is simple, witnessed by the elders, blessed by the community. Ruth wears the same dress she wore to the threshing floor. Naomi stands beside her, weeping and smiling in equal measure. When Boaz lifts the veil and looks into Ruth's eyes, he speaks words only she can hear. "You are my covenant. Everything I have is yours." Ruth becomes his wife. She moves into his house, a real house with solid walls and a roof that doesn't leak, with storerooms full of grain and olive oil, with servants who eye her warily but obey nonetheless. Naomi comes too, installed in a place of honor, no longer the bitter, empty woman who returned from Moab, but the respected mother-in-law of a prominent man. For a few weeks, there's a honeymoon period of sorts. Boaz is attentive, kind, protective. He introduces Ruth to the rhythms of his household, shows her the land that's now hers by marriage, speaks to her with tenderness and respect. Ruth begins to believe that maybe the worst is behind them. But the town has a longer memory, than its official blessings suggest. It starts small. A merchant in the market who suddenly has no change when Ruth tries to buy oil. A group of women at the well who fall silent when she approaches, then resume their conversation the moment she leaves. Children who stare at her with the unfiltered curiosity of youth, pointing and whispering words they've heard their parents say. Ruth feels it like a low-grade fever, the persistent, never quite absent awareness that she's being watched, judged, found wanting. She's Boaz's wife now, yes, but she's still the Moabite, still the outsider who somehow wormed her way into legitimacy. Boaz notices but doesn't understand the extent of it. He's a man, and a powerful one. When he walks through Bethlehem, people defer to him. They smile, they greet him warmly, they treat Ruth with surface courtesy when he's present. He sees her acceptance, he doesn't see what happens when he's not there. 3 months pass, then 4. Ruth's body begins to change in ways she recognizes, the subtle shifts, the tender breasts, the morning nausea that comes and goes. She's pregnant. The realization fills her with joy and terror in equal measure. She tells Naomi first. The old woman's face transforms, years falling away as hope blazes bright. "A child," Naomi whispers, touching Ruth's still flat belly with trembling fingers. "A son to carry Mahlon's name, a grandson for Elimelech." The line continues. "Oh, Ruth, this is the redemption. This is what it was all for." When Ruth tells Boaz, he sweeps her into his arms, laughing with delight. That night, he holds her carefully, as if she's made of glass, whispering prayers of thanksgiving against her hair. But as Ruth's pregnancy becomes visible, so does the town's discomfort. Women who had grudgingly accepted her presence now whisper openly. Moabite blood in a Hebrew child. What will that do to the baby? What curse will it carry? A young mother pulls her daughter away when Ruth reaches out to touch the girl's hair in the market. "Dad, don't let the foreigner touch you," she hisses, not even bothering to lower her voice. The old accusations resurface with new venom. Didn't Naomi's sons die after marrying Moabite women? Isn't Ruth's womb tainted? What kind of child can come from such a union, half covenant, half curse? Ruth endures it in silence. She's learned that defending herself only makes it worse. But each cruel word, each turned back, each whispered prayer against evil as she passes, they accumulate like stones in her chest, heavy and crushing. One afternoon, 6 months pregnant and exhausted, Ruth walks to the well for water. It's midday, the heat oppressive, and she needs to rest in the shade before making the walk back uphill to Boaz's house. But when she arrives, she finds a group of women already there, the same ones who've made their hostility clear. They don't leave when she approaches. Instead, they form a kind of wall, blocking access to the well. Ruth stops, uncertain. "We were here first," one of them says. "Her name is Basemath, and she's been one of the cruelest. Wait your turn." Ruth nods, stepping back. But the women don't draw water. They just stand there, talking among themselves, laughing at jokes Ruth isn't part of. Minutes pass. Ruth's back aches, her feet are swollen, and the sun is beating down mercilessly. Still the women talk. Finally, Ruth speaks up, her voice quiet but firm. "Please, I just need water. Then I'll go." Basemath turns to her, eyebrows raised in mock surprise. "Oh, did you think we were joking? We're not ready to leave yet. Maybe if you'd been born here, you'd understand how the well works. But since you're not..." She shrugs, the dismissal complete. Ruth feels something crack inside her. Not anger, she's too tired for anger, just a deep, aching despair. She turns and walks away, waterless, tears streaming down her face that she doesn't bother to hide. She makes it halfway home before she has to stop, leaning against a wall, sobbing. Her back hurts, her feet hurt, everything hurts. And for the first time since she left Moab, she lets herself ask the question she's been avoiding. Did I make a mistake? "Ruth?" She looks up. It's Miriam, the old woman who defended her at the gate. Miriam takes one look at Ruth's face, at her empty water jar, and her expression hardens. "The well?" she asks. Ruth nods, unable to speak. Miriam mutters something under her breath that sounds like a curse. Then she takes Ruth's arm. "Come, my house is closer. You'll rest there, drink my water, and then I'll walk you home." Inside Miriam's small, cluttered house, Ruth sits on a stool and drinks the water Miriam pours for her. The old woman watches her with sharp, knowing eyes. "They're scared," Miriam says finally. Ruth looks up, confused. "Scared of what?" "Of being wrong," Miriam says. "They've built their whole lives on the certainty that they're inside and others are outside. That they're clean and others are unclean. And you," she points at Ruth's belly, "you and that baby are proof that the lines aren't as clear as they thought. That God might include people they wanted to exclude, and that terrifies them." "I just want to belong," Ruth whispers. "I know," Miriam says gently, "but belonging doesn't come from their approval, child. It comes from covenant. And you made your covenant the day you chose Naomi's God. Everything else is just noise, painful noise, but noise nonetheless." Ruth wants to believe her, but the noise is so loud and she's so tired. That evening, Boaz finds her sitting in their courtyard, staring at nothing. He sits beside her, taking her hand. "Tell me," he says simply. So she does everything. The well, the whispers, the children pulling away, the prayers against evil. She tells him about the weight of being watched, the exhaustion of always having to prove herself worthy, the fear that her child will inherit her outsider status and suffer for it. Boaz listens without interrupting. When she finishes, his jaw is tight with suppressed rage. "I'll speak to them," he says. "I'll go to every house if I have to. This stops now." But Ruth shakes her head. "It won't help. You can't force people to accept me. You can make them polite, but you can't make them welcome me. And I don't want to be your charity project that everyone resents. You're not, aren't I?" Ruth's voice breaks. "Be honest, Boaz. Would you have married me if it weren't for the law? If it weren't for redemption and duty and land? Or would you have chosen someone easier, someone who wouldn't cost you so much in reputation and peace?" The question hangs between them, dangerous and raw. Boaz is silent for a long moment. Then he takes both her hands, forcing her to look at him. "I would have chosen you," he says fiercely. "Law or no law, duty or no duty. I watched you in the fields for weeks before the threshing floor. I saw your faithfulness, your dignity, your courage. I saw who you were when no one was watching, and I wanted that. I wanted you, not as an obligation, as my wife, as my partner, as the woman I choose every single day." Ruth searches his face, looking for the lie, the reservation, but she finds only honesty and something deeper, love, real and tested and true. "Then why does it hurt so much?" she whispers. "Because covenant always costs something," Boaz says quietly. "You chose a hard road. I chose a hard road, but we chose it together. And whatever they say, whatever they do, they can't undo that. You're mine and I'm yours, and God himself witnessed it." Ruth leans into him, and he holds her as the sun sets and the stars emerge. For this moment, in his arms, she lets herself believe it's enough. But that night, she dreams. Dark dreams of labyrinths with no exit, of doors that slam shut in her face, of voices chanting words she can't understand, but knows are curses. She wakes, gasping, her hand on her belly, feeling the baby move inside her. "Please," she prays into the darkness, "please don't let my choice destroy my child. Please don't let them hate him the way they hate me." No answer comes, just the silence of the deep night and Boaz's steady breathing beside her. The weeks crawl by. Ruth's belly grows round and heavy. Naomi fusses over her, preparing cloths and blankets, mixing herbs for the birth. Boaz is attentive, but increasingly preoccupied. The harvest is coming again, and his responsibilities multiply, and Ruth feels increasingly isolated. The other pregnant women in town gather to share advice and stories, but Ruth isn't invited. When she tries to join them at the well or in the market, conversations halt. She's left standing on the outside of circles that close against her. One evening, 8 months pregnant and unable to sleep, Ruth walks out to the roof of the house. The night air is cooler here, and she can see the stars, the same stars that wheeled overhead the night she lay at Boaz's feet. The night everything changed. She remembers her prayer then, "Show me I didn't make a mistake," and now standing here with her body transformed by new life, her status elevated from gleaner to wife, she still doesn't know the answer. Did she make a mistake? Or is this the cost of faithfulness, this constant ache of not quite belonging, this perpetual liminality between two worlds? Ruth. She turns. Naomi has followed her up to the roof. The old woman moves slowly, arthritically, but she makes it. She stands beside Ruth, looking out over the sleeping town. "I should have warned you better," Naomi says quietly, "about what it would cost." "You tried," Ruth says. "I didn't listen." "No," Naomi says, "you heard exactly what you needed to hear, and you chose anyway. That's not naivety, Ruth. That's courage." They stand in silence for a moment. Then Naomi speaks again, her voice thick with emotion. "When Elimelech died, I thought my story was over. When my sons died, I knew it was. I came back to Bethlehem to die, to lay my bones in the land of my people and be done. I had no hope, no future, nothing." She turns to Ruth, tears tracking down her weathered face. "And then you chose me. You chose my God. You chose my people. And you gave me a future I had no right to expect. This baby," she touches Ruth's belly gently, "this baby is Elimelech's grandson, Mahlon's son, my redemption. You did that, you, with your crazy, impossible, faithful choice." Ruth's own tears flow freely now. But what if he grows up hated? What if he grows up loved? Naomi interrupts. What if he grows up knowing his mother was the bravest woman in Bethlehem? What if he grows up understanding that covenant is bigger than blood, that faithfulness matters more than origin, that God's family is wider than we imagine? She grips Ruth's shoulders, fierce despite her age. "You're giving him a story, Ruth, a story of courage and cost and covenant. That's worth more than easy acceptance. That's worth everything." Ruth wants to believe it, desperately wants to believe it, but doubt still gnaws at her chest, cold and persistent. "What if I'm not strong enough?" she whispers. "You are," Naomi says with absolute certainty. "You crossed a desert for a God you barely knew. You gleaned in hostile fields for months. You went to the threshing floor and laid your heart bare. You've already done the impossible, Ruth. This," she gestures at the town below, "this is just the long obedience in the same direction." Ruth nods, not entirely convinced but clinging to Naomi's faith when her own wavers. They stand together on the roof as the night deepens. Two widows who gambled everything on an invisible covenant, waiting for the dawn that must eventually come. Below them, Bethlehem sleeps, unaware that the child in Ruth's womb will one day be remembered as the grandfather of kings, the ancestor of the Messiah, the hinge on which redemption history turns. But Ruth doesn't know that yet. She only knows the present weight, the current cost, the immediate struggle. And in the darkness before dawn, that's enough to make her wonder if the price of faithfulness is more than she can bear. The labor begins in the night, as labor so often does. Ruth wakes to a tightening in her belly, a pressure that builds and releases, builds and releases. She lies still, timing the contractions, not wanting to wake Boaz until she's certain. But when her water breaks, warm and sudden, there's no more waiting. "Boaz," she whispers. shaking his shoulder. It's time. He's awake instantly, moving with purpose. Within minutes, Naomi is there, and the midwife has been sent for, a woman named Shiphrah, one of the few in Bethlehem who hasn't openly scorned Ruth. The household springs to life. Servants boil water, gather cloths, prepare the birthing room. But as dawn breaks and the contractions intensify, something else begins to happen. Word spreads through Bethlehem that the Moabite woman is in labor. And with the word comes the gathering. At first, it's just curious whispers at the market. Have you heard? Boaz's wife is giving birth. But as the morning wears on and the news spreads, the whispers take on a darker tone. Old superstitions surface. Ancient prejudices find fresh voice. A cluster of women gathers near Boaz's house, ostensibly to offer support, but really to bear witness, to see what kind of child emerges from this controversial union. Some bring prayers, genuine prayers for a safe delivery, but others bring something else: fear, suspicion, the unspoken hope that maybe, just maybe, something will go wrong and validate their rejection of Ruth. Inside the birthing room, Ruth knows none of this. She's lost in the primal work of bringing life into the world. The pain is enormous, consuming, unlike anything she imagined. She grips Naomi's hand so hard, she fears she'll break the old woman's bones. Breathe, Shiphrah instructs, her voice calm and professional. You're doing well. The baby is positioned correctly. Just breathe through it. But as the hours pass, morning turning to afternoon, afternoon stretching toward evening, the labor doesn't progress as it should. Ruth pushes when told to push, rests when told to rest, but the baby doesn't come. She's exhausted, drenched in sweat, shaking with effort, and slowly a new emotion creeps into the room: fear. Shiphrah's face grows tight with concern. She examines Ruth again, and this time her hands linger longer, probing carefully. When she straightens, she exchanges a glance with Naomi that Ruth doesn't miss. What? Ruth gasps between contractions. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Shiphrah says too quickly. The baby is just taking his time. But Ruth knows. She's heard stories of women who labored for days, who exhausted themselves pushing, who died in childbed with their babies trapped inside them. She sees her own death suddenly, clearly, dying here in a foreign land, her gamble on covenant ending in blood and failure. I can't do this, she whispers, not to Shiphrah, not to Naomi, to the God she chose, the God who's been silent through so much. I can't, please, I'm not strong enough. Naomi leans close, her face fierce. Yes, you are. You walked away from everything you knew. You gleaned in hostile fields. You went to the threshing floor. You married into a people who didn't want you. You've already done impossible things, Ruth. One more, just one more. Another contraction crashes over Ruth like a wave. She screams, not a polite cry, but a raw, animal sound of pain and effort. Outside, the women gathered near the house hear it and exchange glances. It's been too long, one of them murmurs. Moabite blood, another says, quiet but audible. Maybe the child is cursed. Or maybe she is, a third adds, cursed for leaving her gods, cursed for coming here. Boaz, standing in the courtyard because men are not allowed in the birthing room, hears fragments of this. His hands clench into fists. He wants to rage at them, to drive them away from his house, from his wife, but he's trapped by custom and helplessness, able only to pace and pray and wait. Inside, Ruth is fading. The pain has become a constant thing, no longer rising and falling, but simply present, enormous, crushing. She's pushed so many times she's lost count. Her body is giving out. She can feel it, the strength draining away, the edges of her vision darkening. I see the head, Shiphrah says suddenly, urgently. Ruth, listen to me. The baby is right there. One more push. You have to give me one more. I can't, Ruth sobs. I have nothing left. Naomi grips her face, forcing Ruth to look at her. You have everything left. You have the same faithfulness that brought you here. You have the same God who led you every step. And you have a son who needs to be born. So push, daughter, push like your life depends on it, because it does. Ruth closes her eyes. She thinks of Mahlon, dead in Moab. She thinks of Naomi, empty and returning. She thinks of Boaz at the gate, fighting for her. She thinks of the God she chose in darkness, the God who promised to be wings over her, and she pushes. The pain is apocalyptic. Ruth feels something tear, tastes blood in her mouth from biting her lip. She pushes past exhaustion, past fear, past every reasonable limit. She pushes with the last fragment of strength she possesses, and suddenly, release. The baby slides free in a rush of fluid and blood. Shiphrah catches him, and for one terrible, eternal moment, there's silence. No cry, no sound, just silence. Ruth's heart stops. The baby is dead. He's been born dead, all of it. The journey, the choice, the suffering, for nothing. For a stillborn child and a mother too broken to survive. But then Shiphrah slaps the baby's back sharply, and a cry erupts, thin and reedy at first, then stronger, louder. The sound of life, the sound of continuation, the sound of everything Ruth has gambled for suddenly made real. A son, Shiphrah says, her voice thick with emotion. You have a son, Ruth, a healthy, perfect son. Ruth collapses back onto the birthing mat, sobbing. Not from pain now, but from relief so profound it feels like drowning in reverse. Shiphrah cleans the baby quickly, efficiently, and then places him on Ruth's chest. He's tiny, wrinkled, covered in vernix, utterly beautiful. Ruth touches his face with trembling fingers. He's warm, he's alive, he's here. Hello, she whispers. Hello, little one. I'm your mother. You're here. You made it. The baby roots against her breast, and she helps him latch, marveling at the fierce strength in his tiny mouth. Naomi is weeping openly, her hand on Ruth's shoulder, staring at the baby as if seeing a miracle. He's perfect, Naomi breathes. Ruth, he's absolutely perfect. Outside, the cry of the newborn has reached the gathered women. Silence falls among them. A baby's cry means success. Mother and child have survived. But they wait, tense and uncertain, to hear more. Boaz pushes past custom and enters the birthing room. He should wait, should let Ruth rest first, but he can't. He has to see. When he enters and sees Ruth cradling the baby, his face transforms. He crosses to them in 3 strides, kneeling beside the mat. Ruth, he says, his voice breaking. Oh, Ruth, meet your son, Ruth says softly. Boaz looks at the baby, and something in his expression shifts. This isn't just a legal obligation fulfilled, a dead man's name continued. This is his child, his son, his family. He touches the baby's tiny fist, and the infant grips his finger with surprising strength. He's strong, Boaz says, wonder in his voice. And like his mother, Naomi adds. They sit together in the birthing room as the sun sets, as the shadows lengthen, as the baby nurses and sleeps and wakes and nurses again. The afterbirth is delivered. Ruth is cleaned and bandaged. She tore badly, and Shiphrah works carefully to stitch her. But Ruth barely notices the pain. She's staring at her son, memorizing every detail of his face. As evening falls, custom requires that the baby be presented to the community. Boaz carries him outside, into the courtyard where the women have gathered. The crowd has grown, word has spread, and people want to see, to judge, to determine if this child is blessing or curse. Boaz holds up the baby, and the infant blinks in the torchlight, unaware of the scrutiny he's under. For a long moment, no one speaks. They're looking for something, a sign of foreignness, a mark of curse, anything to confirm their prejudices. But the baby is simply a baby. Perfect fingers, perfect toes, dark hair and eyes that will probably turn brown. He looks like Boaz, he looks like Mahlon, he looks like any Hebrew child in Bethlehem, one of the women, not Basemath, not one of the cruel ones, but an older woman Ruth doesn't know, steps forward. Her voice is tentative but sincere. What will you name him? It's Naomi who answers. She's emerged from the house, still weak, but unable to stay away. She approaches the baby, and Boaz places him in her arms. The old woman looks down at the infant, and her face is radiant with joy and vindication. His name is Obed, she says clearly. Obed, servant, because he will serve the Lord and carry forward the line of Elimelech and Mahlon. Obed. The name settles over the gathering like a benediction, and something in the atmosphere shifts. Maybe it's the baby's perfection. Maybe it's Naomi's joy. Maybe it's simply the undeniable evidence that God has blessed this union with life. But women begin to come forward, slowly at first, then more quickly. They bring blessings, small gifts, words of congratulation, not all of them. Basemath and her circle remain at the back, faces tight with disapproval, but enough. Enough that Ruth, watching from the doorway, feels something loosen in her chest. Acceptance, not universal, not unqualified, but real. The women gather around Naomi, celebrating with her. Praise be to the Lord, they say, who has not left you without a kinsman redeemer today. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth, better than 7 sons. The phrase hangs in the air. It's the highest compliment a woman can receive in this culture, to be valued above multiple sons. And they're saying it about Ruth, the Moabite, the foreigner, the outsider. Ruth feels tears streaming down her face again. She's too exhausted to stop them, too overwhelmed to care. Miriam appears beside her, squeezing her hand. You did it, the old woman whispers. You held on, you endured, and look what came from it. But Ruth can barely process it. The pain, the fear, the terrible hours of labor have left her hollowed out. She's glad the baby is here, glad he's healthy, but she feels strangely numb, disconnected from the celebration happening around her. Shiphrah notices and guides Ruth back to bed. Rest now, the midwife says gently. You've done the hardest work. Your body needs time to heal. Ruth lies down, and Naomi brings Obed to her. The baby is sleeping, his tiny face peaceful and perfect. Ruth holds him, feeling his warmth, his weight. This is what she fought for. This is what the covenant demanded, not just her faithfulness, but her blood, her pain, her body broken open to bring forth life. Was it worth it? She whispers to Naomi. All of it. Naomi looks at her with eyes that have seen too much grief and too much grace. Ask me in 20 years, she says softly, when he's grown and you can see what kind of man he becomes. When you understand what this moment set in motion, then I'll tell you yes, 1,000 times yes, it was worth it. But Ruth doesn't have 20 years of perspective. She only has this moment, exhausted, in pain, holding a newborn who has no idea how controversial his existence is. And in this moment, she's too tired to feel triumph or vindication. She only feels the deep, bone-weary relief of survival. Outside, the celebration continues. But in the quiet of the birthing room, Ruth lets herself finally, fully rest. The baby sleeps against her chest. Naomi sits beside her, hand on her shoulder, and Boaz enters quietly, sitting on her other side, completing the small circle of family. Thank you, Boaz says softly, for everything you risked, everything you gave. Ruth doesn't answer. She's already slipping into sleep, the kind of deep, dreamless sleep that comes after the body has been pushed beyond its limits and found, somehow, that it can endure. But just before consciousness fades completely, she feels Boaz press a kiss to her forehead, and she hears Naomi whisper a prayer, not in Hebrew, but in Moabite, a blessing from Ruth's childhood, from a language and a culture she left behind, but that Naomi learned just for this moment. It's a small grace, but grace nonetheless, and in the darkness of exhausted sleep, Ruth finally rests. The weeks after Obed's birth pass in a haze of sleepless nights and tender moments. Ruth's body heals slowly, though she moves carefully, wincing with each step. But the baby thrives, nursing eagerly, sleeping in short bursts, filling the house with his cries and his presence. Naomi is transformed. The bitter woman who returned from Moab empty has become a doting grandmother who can't stop smiling. She holds Obed constantly, singing him old songs, telling him stories he can't possibly understand yet. The other women of Bethlehem notice. They see Naomi's joy and can't help but be moved by it. "Naomi has a son," they say to each other, and the phrase spreads through the town like warmth. Not Ruth has a son, but Naomi. Because in the legal sense, Obed belongs to Mahlon's line, to Elimelech's family. He's the restoration of what was lost, the reversal of emptiness. But for Ruth, the days are harder than she expected. She loves Obed fiercely, would die for him without hesitation. But she's also exhausted in ways she's never been before. The baby wakes constantly to nurse. Her body aches, and underneath it all is a strange darkness she can't name. A fog that makes everything feel distant and heavy. One afternoon, about 6 weeks after the birth, a group of women approaches with gifts. They've brought a blanket, a rattle, some dried dates, but as they settle around her, Ruth feels their eyes on Obed, examining him, comparing him, looking for differences. "He's quite dark," one observes, "takes after his mother." Another woman leans in. "Does he act normally? I mean, do you notice anything strange about him?" Ruth's hand tightens on the baby. He's 6 weeks old. He eats, sleeps, and cries, like every baby. Of course, it's just, you hear stories about mixed bloodlines, about curses passing down. Ruth stands abruptly. "Thank you for the gifts, but I'm tired, and the baby needs to nurse." The dismissal is clear. The women leave, murmuring among themselves. Ruth carries Obed inside, her heart pounding with suppressed rage. She sits in the darkened room and lets silent tears fall while Obed nurses, oblivious. Boaz finds her there an hour later. He takes one look at her face and knows something is wrong. "What happened?" Ruth tells him about the women, their questions, their veiled accusations. Boaz's face darkens with anger. "I'll speak to them." "No," Ruth interrupts. "You can't fix this, Boaz. You can't make them accept us, and She trails off. "I'm so tired, not just body tired, soul tired. I thought once Obed was born, once they could see he was healthy and perfect, that would be enough. But it's not, it's never enough." Boaz sits beside her, pulling her into his arms carefully. "You don't have to fight right now. Right now, you just have to rest." But Ruth shakes her head. "Some days I wonder if I made the right choice. If I sentenced Obed to a life of never quite belonging." Boaz is quiet for a long moment. Then he says, "Do you remember what you said to Naomi on the road? Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God." You didn't know what that would cost, but you said it anyway. And that choice brought you here, to this house, to this baby. It's not an easy life, but it's a real life. And it matters. "How do you know?" Ruth asks, her voice raw. "Because I see what your choice created," Boaz says firmly. "Naomi was dead inside when she came back to Bethlehem. Now look at her, she's alive again, and Obed is going to grow up knowing his mother was the bravest woman in Bethlehem. That's not nothing, Ruth. That's everything." The weeks turn to months. Obed grows, his tiny features becoming more defined. He starts to smile, real smiles, and the first time he smiles at Ruth, she feels something crack open in her chest. A flood of love so powerful it makes her knees weak. 6 months after Obed's birth, there's a festival in Bethlehem. Boaz insists that Ruth come, that she bring Obed, and let people see how well the baby is thriving. Ruth doesn't want to go, but she knows he's right. So she dresses carefully and walks into the square beside her husband. The reaction is mixed. Some people smile, others turn away. Ruth feels every stare, every whisper like needles in her skin. But then an old man approaches, so old he's bent nearly double. He shuffles up to her and peers at Obed. "Moabite woman," he says, and Ruth tenses, but his voice isn't hostile. "May I tell you something? I'm old enough to remember when your husband's mother came to this town. Rahab, the Canaanite. Everyone said the same things about her. They're saying about you now. Foreigner, unclean, cursed. But from her line came Boaz, one of the finest men in Bethlehem. So I look at this baby and think maybe we don't know as much as we think we do about who God includes in his family." He shuffles away, but his words stay with her, a small light in the darkness. Slowly, tentatively, a few women approach Ruth. Not all of them, but some. Women who've watched her struggle and survive. One of them, named Hannah, sits beside Ruth. "How are you really?" she asks with genuine concern. Ruth is so surprised by the kindness that she answers honestly, "I'm struggling. Some days I don't know if I'm strong enough for this." Hannah nods. "After my first baby, I felt that way too, like I was drowning. But it gets easier. Your body heals. The baby sleeps longer. You find your rhythm." She pauses. "I should have reached out sooner. I'm sorry for that." It's not much, just an acknowledgement, but it's something, and Ruth clings to it like a lifeline. That night, Ruth stands at the window with Obed sleeping in her arms. Boaz comes to stand beside her. "Tell me about your mother," Ruth says suddenly. So Boaz does. He tells her about Rahab's courage, about her leap of faith in trusting the God of Israel, about how she was grafted into the tribe of Judah. "Did she struggle?" Ruth asks. "Like I'm struggling. My father said she used to tell him that covenant always costs something, that choosing God means choosing the harder path, but that the path leads somewhere worth going." Months pass. Obed grows. He sits up, then crawls, then pulls himself to standing, and slowly Ruth finds her footing again. The darkness doesn't disappear entirely, but it recedes. She learns to live with the whispers, to ignore the stares, to focus on what matters, her family, her covenant, her choice. One afternoon, when Obed is nearly a year old, Ruth is at the market when she overhears 2 young girls talking. "My mother says Ruth is the bravest woman in Bethlehem," one of them says. "Why?" the other asks. "Because she left everything to follow God, and she never gave up, even when everyone was mean to her." Ruth stands frozen, tears streaming down her face. She doesn't know these girls, but somehow her story has become a story worth telling. That night, she tells Naomi and Boaz what she heard. Naomi smiles, that knowing smile of someone who always believed. "Your story isn't finished, Ruth. This is just the beginning. Wait and see what God does with a life surrendered to Him." Ruth looks at Obed, who's playing on the floor, laughing at nothing in particular, and she thinks about all the impossible choices that led to this moment. Was it worth it? She still doesn't know, not fully, but she knows this: she would do it again, every painful step. Because the alternative, turning back, giving up, choosing safety over covenant, that would have been a slower death. "I hope you're right," Ruth says to Naomi. "It is," Naomi says with absolute certainty, "because this child is going to be part of something bigger than any of us can imagine." And as the sun sets over Bethlehem, Ruth feels something she hasn't felt in months: peace, Not the absence of struggle, but peace despite it. The knowledge that she made her choice and she's living with it, and that's enough for today. But Ruth doesn't yet know the rest of the story. She doesn't know that her son Obed will grow into a man of strength and integrity, that he'll father Jesse, that Jesse will father 8 sons, the youngest, a shepherd boy named David, will become the greatest king Israel ever knows. She doesn't know that centuries later, scribes will trace the lineage of the Messiah and find her name there, Ruth the Moabite, the foreigner, the outsider who became the great-grandmother of King David and the ancestor of Jesus Christ himself. She doesn't know that her impossible choice on a dusty road between Moab and Judah would ripple through history, changing not just her life, but the trajectory of redemption itself. All Ruth knows is this: she chose covenant over comfort. She chose faithfulness over certainty, and somehow, impossibly, it was enough. The rejected was chosen. The foreigner became the mother of kings. And from Ruth's line, through pain and prejudice, through struggle and endurance, came the one who would say, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Ruth couldn't have known, but God did. And that's the secret that changes everything. So what is the great secret behind Ruth's choice? It's this: faithfulness to an unseen God is never wasted. When you choose the harder path because you see his character, even when others call you crazy, even when the future is dark, you are writing a story bigger than your own. Your impossible choice today may be the hinge someone else's redemption turns on tomorrow. Ruth didn't know she was becoming the great-grandmother of David. She just knew that Naomi's God was worth following, even into the unknown, and that was enough. Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. That's the invitation of covenant itself, to bind your life to his, no matter the cost. You may feel like Ruth, exhausted, questioned, struggling to belong. You may wonder if your choice to follow God was a mistake. But remember, the greatest stories in God's kingdom start with impossible choices made by ordinary people who simply refuse to give up. So keep walking, keep choosing, keep trusting. Because the God who redeemed Ruth the Moabite is the same God who's writing your story right now. And he specializes in making the impossible absolutely real. If this story touched something deep in you, if Ruth's secret feels like your secret, then subscribe to this channel and turn on the bell, and share this with someone who's standing at their own crossroads right now, someone who needs to know they're not alone in the struggle. May you have the courage of Ruth. May you find the faithfulness to keep choosing well, and may you discover that the God you're following is already walking ahead of you, making a way where there seems to be no way. He did it for Ruth. He'll do it for you.